something about the World Economic Forum. Did you interview somebody recently or say something about that recently?
Yeah, no, it's something that I've been seeing pop up a little bit on social media. People who, so basically, what happened was early. I don't know, maybe in the first or second year that I served in Congress, I found out that my picture and name had been placed on the World Economic Forum's website under this category they have listed as young global leaders. And I looked at it and I was like, okay, well, they have different people of different political parties and from around the world that are on this website. I was never asked to join, and I was never informed by them that they had put my name and picture on their website. And I honestly didn't know that much about it. But people have said, oh, well, what did you learn by graduating from Klaus Schwab's Young Global Leaders Academy or all this stuff? And it's just, it's unfortunate that there's a lot of, I don't know, false assumptions being made, I guess. It's an organization, I've never gone to any of their shenanigans. That's a good word. I've never gone to any of their events. I didn't graduate from any, I've literally not had anything to do with the World Economic Forum. And the reason why people are concerned about this is actually very important. And I'm glad to just make clear that there is no connection between me and the World Economic Forum. You know, the World Economic Forum is essentially pushing this, and Klaus Schwab and Glenn Beck wrote a whole book about this for those who want more information. But basically, they're pushing this super globalist agenda where you have corporate powers of like the most wealthy of the wealthy attempting to create whatever they want to call it, some new world order, set the rules for the world that supersede and undermine the sovereignty of countries, undermining our democracy, essentially. And that's really what is so dangerous. And their intent, of course, they claim to know what is best for us more than we know ourselves. And why wouldn't they, these multi-billionaires? But the danger of it is exactly that they are trying to set the rules for the world and build some kind of utopian future in their own mind, but undermining our voices and our sovereignty as a country. I think that's the best way I can put it in a nutshell. So I have been very outspoken about a lot of these different issues over the years. So for anyone who questions what my record is, look at my record and you'll see how I have been talking about and warning against the very things that these people are pushing. Saying that, if I were ever, and I haven't been, but if I were invited to go to Davos is their big forum that they put on, I think it's every year. If I were invited to go speak there, I would go and speak the same kind of truth to them as I speak to anyone else, because I think it's important that no matter that we not just live within our own echo chambers, but we actually go out and vigorously engage in this marketplace of ideas that we're talking about here.
Yeah, I have no doubt that you would do so. There's another part of this. Again, this is on my mind now because of just having returned from Europe, which is this thing that's called populism and nationalism. And I delight in Prime Minister Meloni's rhetoric. I mean, I may not agree with all her politics, but I delight in her rhetoric. I just think isn't that her name, Meloni?
For Italy.
When I saw a lot of that in Europe when I was there, particularly where she held up a French something, and she goes, 50% of this comes from kids pulling gold out of a mine, and so instead of bringing those kids to Western Europe, why don't we allow those countries to keep their money so they can thrive, on their own? I thought, well, it makes perfect sense to me. I dig what she's saying. So anyway, but it made me think about other things I was seeing over there, which was I'm hearing rumbles of Scotland again trying to push independence, and being in Spain and watching people celebrate their culture and their art and their architecture. That there is a value that humans derive that is not purely negative. And we think about nationalism, and I think sometimes we think about World War II as sort of the final pathway of nationalism, but it doesn't have to be like that. And there's a certain delight that humans have, just the way the Native Americans and the indigenous people still stay connected to their culture and their identity as such. That everybody, humans, I don't know, have stronger words than like or enjoy, but it's important to us to have that connection to a culture and a heritage and a community and maybe a people even as part of that. The fact that the World Economic Forum wants to destroy that or devalue it or sort of consider it somehow dangerous or problematic, I think there'll be a massive pushback against that. And I think that's kind of underway.
Yeah.
At least that was my sense in Western Europe. And it also made me think about us here and how we are so negative on our stuff. We are just so, there's like a hatred for, that you can feel, or negativity at least, that you can feel here that you just don't see over there. There was a relief not to have that. But to acknowledge and try to come to terms with, as I said, the horrible history that Spain perpetrated on an entire continent and that Portugal created with the slave trade. I mean, these were real historical things that these cultures were responsible for and need to be talked about honestly. But condemning an entire culture and entire people in the present moment because of that history, I'm uncomfortable with that.
As you should be, because who are we as people if we are not willing or able to learn from the mistakes of our past? I mean, just even in our own singular lifetimes, I think that's what we hope, right? Is that every day as we move forward in life, that we continue to learn and we continue to grow from those mistakes of the past, importantly, so we don't continue making them again. And the same goes for us in the history of this country, that we do acknowledge and recognize and understand the sins of this country's past, so that we make sure that we don't repeat those same tragedies again. And that's really where, I'm proud to wear the uniform of this country. I'm proud to, salute the flag. I'm proud and get goosebumps, when I hear and sing the Star Spangled Banner, because to me, that's what that represents. It represents that freedom for us as a society, as people in this country who are proud of the potential and the foundational values and principles that make this country unique. And it is rooted in those God-given rights and freedoms that are enshrined in the Constitution. And it's up to us. It's up to us as individuals and as Americans to decide what kind of future we want to see. And so, again, when I hear people who are like, oh my gosh, look at all those American flags. And you hear this from people on television sometimes, some of these political pundits or commenters or whatever it is, that like, oh gosh, if you go to the South, they have so many American flags, and talk about it in a really derogatory manner. It makes me sad. It makes me sad because they are not recognizing how special, how special this country really is, and that specialness comes from those principles that are rooted in our Constitution. You mentioned a couple of things I want to comment on here. You talk about populism. And I remember I had a meeting with somebody in my office in Congress one day where they were shaking their heads and like so concerned about, well, what do we do about the rise of populism in America and around the world? This is just, this is of a great concern. And I said, why? Why is this of great concern? Because the people are rising up and saying, hey, you know what? We're sick and tired of you guys living in your ivory towers, you politicians, you elite, you CEOs of multinational corporations, making decisions that benefit yourselves, but come at the cost of the lives of everyday people, everyday Americans and people around the world. And that's really what's at the heart of it. And so when you look at the people who are wringing their hands over, like, what do we do about the rise of populism? They are, the equivalents of the elite that the first, people who came and fled, England and other countries in Europe came to this country to escape from. And that's it again, it's just so telling. Like, you look at who's concerned about populism. They're the people who believe that we the people exist to serve the well-being and the thriving of these multinational corporations, rather than we the people existing and living, just trying to live our lives. and that the world should not revolve, the policies should not revolve around what is best for corporations, but they really believe what's best for corporations is actually best for the people, when no, not the case.
Let me, if you don't mind, I'm going to read a tweet from Harry Truman, or a quote from Harry Truman that you tweeted a couple of days ago, which was, once a government commits to the principle of silencing opposition, it has only one way to go, and that's down the path of increasingly repressive measures until it becomes a source of terror to all its citizens. And we're sort of flirting with that as a reality, and that's what we're talking about pushing back against.
Exactly.